A mother always knows when something's wrong, even when it's her own child trying to kill her. I'm not talking about intuition. I'm not talking about some mystical bond that they write about in greeting cards and Sunday sermons. I'm talking about the way your stomach twists when you catch a smile that doesn't reach the eyes, the way your hands shake when you realize the person pouring your drink won't look you in the face, the way every instinct in your body screams, run, when the one person who should love you most is standing too close, breathing too calm, waiting too patiently for you to drink. That afternoon, I knew. God help me, I knew. The cocoa smelled wrong, just slightly off, a bitter edge beneath the chocolate, like crushed cherry pits or the way the air tastes metallic before a storm. Most people wouldn't notice. Most people would have taken that first sip and thanked their daughter for being so thoughtful, preparing their favorite drink on a cold October day. But I'm not most people. I've spent 30 years watching, excusing, explaining away the things that didn't quite add up. 30 years of telling myself I was paranoid, that grief had made me suspicious, that love meant giving the benefit of the doubt even when doubt was all I had left. Not this time. I watched her from across the table. My daughter, my Sarah, my beautiful broken girl, who I pulled from the wreckage of her childhood and promised to keep safe forever. She was smiling at me with those same wide eyes that had looked up at me when she was 7 years old, silent and scared in that social worker's office. The same eyes that had cried into my shoulder the night I officially adopted her. The same eyes that now watched my hands with an intensity that made my skin crawl. "Drink up, Mom," she said, her voice honey-sweet. "I made it just the way you like it." But she didn't touch hers. Neither did the third cup she'd poured, the one sitting untouched at the empty place where her husband usually sat. My hand was shaking. I could feel my pulse in my throat, could taste copper on my tongue. Every cell in my body was screaming at me to stop, to put the cup down, to run. But instead, I smiled back at her. "Actually, sweetheart," I said, my voice barely steady, "I think I'd prefer the one you made for yourself. Mine looks a little too sweet." I saw it then, just for a fraction of a second. A flicker of something cold and calculating behind those familiar eyes. Panic, maybe, or rage. It was gone so fast I might have imagined it, replaced immediately by confusion. "They're all the same, Mom. I made them exactly alike." I know, it's silly." I was already reaching across the table, my heart hammering so hard I thought she must hear it. "But you know how I am about my little preferences. Humor an old woman." I switched the mugs, mine to her place, hers to mine. The third one remained where it was, a silent witness to whatever was about to happen. Sarah's smile never wavered, but I saw her fingers tighten around the edge of the table. "Mom, that's ridiculous. It's exactly the same." The scream came from the kitchen before she could finish. Her husband, Michael, sweet Michael who'd always treated me like his own mother, was on the floor, convulsing, foam spreading from the corners of his mouth. His eyes were wide and terrified, staring at nothing, seeing everything. Sarah was already running, already screaming, already throwing herself down beside him. The performance was perfect. The grief looked so real. The way she cradled his head, the way she sobbed his name, the way she begged him not to leave her. It was exactly what a loving wife would do. But I'd seen the third cup, the one she'd poured for him, the one that had been sitting on the counter while we talked, the one he must have grabbed when he came in from the garage, the one that smelled like bitter almonds. "Call 911, Sarah was screaming at me, her face wet with tears. "Mom, call 911. He's dying," I called. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. But even as I gave them our address, even as I watched my son in law fight for his life on my daughter's kitchen floor, even as the sirens grew louder in the distance, all I could think was, she really did it. She really tried to kill me. They saved him, barely. The paramedics worked on Michael for 10 minutes before they got a stable rhythm. By the time they loaded him into the ambulance, his lips were blue and his breathing was so shallow you could barely see his chest move. Sarah rode with him, gripping his hand, playing the devastated wife so convincingly that even the EMTs looked at her with pity. I followed in my car, my hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel, my mind racing faster than my heart. 30 years. 30 years I'd been blind. Or maybe not blind. Maybe just determined not to see. The hospital was chaos. Fluorescent lights and antiseptic smells, and the steady beep of monitors tracking whether my son-in-law would live or die. Sarah paced the waiting room like a caged animal, her mascara running, her hands twisting together. Every few minutes she'd come to me, collapse into my arms, sob into my shoulder. What happened, Mom? What could have done this to him? I held her. God forgive me. I held her and stroked her hair and murmured comforting nonsense while my mind screamed the truth I didn't want to believe. The doctor came out 3 hours later. Dr. Reyes, a tired-looking woman with kind eyes, and news that made my blood run cold. We pumped his stomach and ran a full toxicology panel. Mrs. Peterson, your son-in-law was poisoned. Cyanide poisoning, to be specific. Sarah's knees buckled. I caught her, felt her whole weight collapse against me, heard her make this sound, this broken, keening wail that should have come from the depths of a mother's worst nightmare. But I'd heard that sound before, years ago, when her goldfish died, when her hamster accidentally ate rat poison, when her middle school teacher got so violently ill she nearly died, and Sarah had been the last one to bring her coffee. The same performance, the same perfect grief. How? Sarah gasped, looking up at Dr. Reyes with those wide, innocent eyes. How could this happen? We were just having cocoa. We were just... The police will need to investigate, Dr. Reyes said gently. They'll want to test everything in your home. But Mrs. Peterson, I need to ask, did your mother-in-law drink anything from the same batch? All eyes turned to me. I saw Sarah's face in that moment, the way her expression froze, the way her breath caught, the way she was calculating, always calculating, trying to figure out what I might say. Yes, I stammered. We both had cocoa, but Sarah made mine special, the way I like it, and I accidentally mixed up the mugs, I lied, the words tumbling out before I'd even decided to say them. Sarah made 3 cups, one for each of us and one for Michael, but I got confused. I switched mine with hers. Michael must have grabbed the one that was meant for... I couldn't finish, couldn't say it out loud, couldn't admit that the cup was meant for me. But Dr. Reyes understood. I saw it in her eyes. The pity, the horror, the professional mask sliding into place. I see. Well, that's very fortunate for you, Mrs. Morrison. Sarah was staring at me, really staring, like she was trying to see inside my skull, trying to understand what I knew and what I was willing to say. Her hand was still in mine, but now it felt like a snake wrapped around my wrist. Mom, she whispered, so softly only I could hear. Mom, you saved my life. The lie sat between us like a living thing. She knew I knew, and I knew she knew I knew. But I'd given her an escape route, wrapped my own attempted murder in confusion and accident, protected my child one more time, even as I realized what she really was. Old habits die hard, even when they should have died decades ago. They kept Michael in the ICU for 5 days. The cyanide had damaged his heart, his kidneys, his nervous system. They said he was lucky to be alive. They said another few seconds and the brain damage would have been permanent. Sarah never left his bedside. She held his hand, read to him, whispered apologies into his unconscious ear. The nurses thought she was devoted. The doctors praised her dedication. Even the police detective who came to ask questions seemed moved by her grief. But I watched. God help me. I watched everything now. I watched how she always made sure someone was in the room before she showed emotion. I watched how her tears stopped the second she thought no one was looking. I watched how she checked her phone constantly, deleted messages, made calls from the hallway in whispers I couldn't quite hear. And I watched how she watched me. Constant, calculating, trying to figure out if I was a problem that needed to be solved. On the third day, she came to my house. I'd been staying away from the hospital, claiming exhaustion, but really just needing space to think, to remember, to finally stop making excuses. Mom? Her voice came soft through my front door. Mom, can I come in? I let her in. What else could I do? She was still my daughter, still the little girl I'd rocked through nightmares and held through panic attacks, still the child I'd promised to love unconditionally. We sat in my living room, the same room where we'd had 1,000 ordinary moments, homework at the coffee table, Christmas mornings, her wedding planning, 30 years of memories soaked into the furniture, and now all of them felt contaminated. The police are asking questions, she said quietly, staring at her hands. About me, about why I made that cocoa, about why there were 3 cups, about, her voice cracked, about whether I wanted to hurt Michael. And did you? The question came out before I could stop it. Direct, brutal, breaking every unspoken rule we'd built over 3 decades of denial. Sarah's head snapped up. For just a moment, I saw her mask slip, saw something cold and alien and absolutely devoid of remorse. Then it was gone, replaced by wounded confusion. Mom, how could you even ask that? I love Michael. I love him more than anything. More than my life insurance policy? More than the inheritance you'd get if I died first? What are you? Don't. My voice was shaking but firm. Don't lie to me anymore, Sarah. Please. I've made excuses for you for 30 years. I've explained away every dead pet, every sick teacher, every convenient accident. But I can't do it anymore. I can't pretend I don't know what you are. Silence, heavy and suffocating, filling the room like smoke. Then Sarah smiled, really smiled, with genuine amusement dancing in her eyes. What I am, she repeated softly. And what's that, Mother? What am I? The way she said, Mother, with just the slightest emphasis, just the faintest hint of mockery, made my blood run cold. I don't know, I whispered. But I know you tried to kill me. I know that cocoa was meant for me. I know Michael drank it by accident. And I know. My voice broke. I know you're sitting here trying to figure out if you need to finish what you started. Sarah stood up slowly, walked to the window, looked out at the street like she was admiring the autumn leaves. You should have drunk it, Mom, she said conversationally, like we were discussing the weather. It would have been so much cleaner, quick, and relatively painless. Now everything's complicated. Michael knows something. He tried to tell the nurses something before they sedated him again. The police are suspicious. And you? She turned to look at me. You're a problem. I'm your mother. You're a problem, she repeated, no emotion in her voice at all. But don't worry, I'll figure something out. I always do. She left after that, just walked out of my house, got in her car, and drove away like we'd been discussing dinner plans. I sat there for an hour, shaking, before I could move, before I could process what I'd just heard, before I could accept that the child I'd loved, protected, and defended for 30 years had just casually admitted she wanted me dead. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every sound was her coming back to finish the job. Every shadow was a threat. I kept thinking about how easy it would be. A pillow over my face while I slept, pills dissolved in my water glass, a staged fall down the stairs. My daughter had tried to kill me. My daughter was trying to decide whether she needed to try again. The thought kept circling my brain like a vulture, picking at the corpse of every happy memory I'd ever had with her. But beneath the fear, beneath the horror, there was something else, something I'd been refusing to feel for 3 decades. Rage, white-hot burning rage that I'd wasted 30 years of my life, that I'd sacrificed my own judgment, my own instincts, my own sanity trying to help a child who'd never wanted help, who'd learned to mimic love but never actually feel it, who'd used my devotion as a shield while she hurt everyone around her. How many people? How many victims had there been over the years that I'd explained away? The neighbor's cat that died eating bad food. The uncle who got mysteriously ill after mentioning he was updating his will. The high school boyfriend who barely survived an accidental overdose. Michael's business partner who died in a tragic car accident just months after taking out a joint life insurance policy. How many deaths was I complicit in? Because I couldn't accept what my daughter was. At 3 in the morning, I got in my car. I drove to Sarah's house, the house I'd helped with the down payment on, the house where I'd hung curtains and painted the nursery for grandchildren that never came, the house where my daughter had tried to murder me. I still had a key. Sarah had given it to me years ago, insisting I keep it for emergencies. I used it now, my hands steady for the first time in days. The door opened silently. The house was dark and quiet. Sarah's car wasn't in the driveway. She was still at the hospital, maintaining her vigil, playing the devoted wife. I moved through the rooms like a ghost, knowing I was destroying whatever remained of our relationship, knowing that what I was about to find would change everything, knowing I should call the police instead of breaking into my daughter's home. But I needed to see it for myself. Needed to know with absolute certainty that I wasn't crazy, wasn't paranoid, wasn't just a traumatized old woman seeing monsters where there were none. I found it in the kitchen. Of course it was in the kitchen. Where else would a poisoner keep her tools? A small jar pushed to the back of the cabinet behind the flour and sugar. No label, but when I opened it, the smell hit me immediately. Bitter almonds, cyanide. My hands were shaking again as I set it on the counter. As I kept searching, a syringe wrapped in a kitchen towel and hidden under the sink. Traces of something dark in the needle. Rope burns on my wrists from gripping the edge of the counter, trying to stay upright, trying not to scream. And then I found the folder. It was in her home office, filed neatly between insurance and financial planning. The tab read Estate Transition Plan in Sarah's precise handwriting. I opened it with hands that barely worked anymore. Copies of my will. Every page highlighted and annotated. My life insurance policy, $250,000, with calculations in the margins about payout timelines. A detailed breakdown of my assets, the house, the retirement accounts, the savings bonds, all of it tallied up like a shopping list. And then I found the journal entries, page after page of meticulous notes, dosage amounts, Timelines, observations about my habits, my routines, my health, plans for how to stage my death, natural causes at first, heart attack likely given her age and stress. Then, when that apparently took too long, acceleration necessary. Mother becoming suspicious of frequent illnesses. Need faster method. The entry from 3 days ago made my vision blur. Advanced dosage tomorrow if mother suspects. The cocoa method should work. She always drinks the whole cup. 3 grams should be sufficient given her weight and age. If she survives, we'll need contingency. Perhaps a fall, house fire. Must be careful not to seem too eager to comfort assist afterward. I was reading my own murder plan, written in my daughter's neat, careful handwriting, planned with the same attention to detail she'd once used for school projects and birthday parties. This wasn't impulse. This wasn't passion or rage or a moment of madness. This was cold, calculated, patient murder. And I was just one name on a list that probably stretched back years. I took everything, the jar, the syringe, the folder, every piece of evidence I could find. I loaded it all into my car as the sun started to rise, my whole body numb with shock and grief and rage. At home, I spread it out on my dining room table, photographed every page, made copies of the copies, packaged it all up carefully, methodically, with the same attention to detail my daughter had used to plan my death. Then I called my lawyer. "Carol," I said when she answered, "I need to update my will, today, right now, and I need you to witness something for me." I told her everything, showed her everything, watched her face go from confusion to disbelief to horror as she realized what she was looking at. "Elizabeth," she breathed, "we need to call the police. Right now, this is—" "Not yet," I said. "I need you to hold on to this. Keep it safe. If anything happens to me, anything at all, you take this directly to the police. Promise me." Elizabeth, "Promise me, Carol." She promised. What else could she do? She was my friend as well as my lawyer. And she could see I needed this, needed to be the one to decide how this ended. After she left, I sat alone with my decision. I could have called the police right then. Should have, probably. Let them handle it. Let the justice system work. Let Sarah face the consequences of her actions. But some small, broken part of me still wanted to give her a chance, still wanted to believe that somewhere inside the monster I'd discovered was the frightened little girl I'd adopted, the child who clung to me and called me Mom and promised to love me forever. I wanted to give her one more opportunity to stop, to confess, to choose differently. I know now how foolish that was, how dangerous, but love makes us stupid, and I'd been stupid about Sarah for 30 years. One more day wouldn't make much difference. Michael woke up on the 6th day. I was there when it happened. Sarah had finally gone home to shower and change, and I'd taken the opportunity to sit with my son-in-law for the first time since the poisoning. His eyes opened slowly, confusion clouding them before clarity returned. When he saw me, something like relief flooded his face. "Elizabeth," he rasped, his voice ruined from the breathing tube they'd only just removed. "Thank God. Where's Sarah?" "At home, resting." I took his hand carefully, mindful of the IV lines. "Michael, what happened? What do you remember?" He closed his eyes. A tear leaked out the corner and ran down toward the pillow. "I knew," he whispered. "I've known for months. I couldn't prove it, couldn't believe it." "Known what?" "That she was trying to kill you." His eyes opened again, meeting mine with painful honesty. I found searches on her computer, poison types, untraceable methods, life insurance policies. I confronted her about it, and she laughed. said I was paranoid, but then I started watching, started paying attention. He coughed, and I helped him sip some water before he continued. That day, the cocoa day, I heard you two talking. I'd stayed home sick and I was in the garage. I heard her in the kitchen, heard her moving things around. When I came in, there were 3 cups on the counter, and I knew. I knew which one was poisoned because I'd seen her put something in it, seen her watching you like a predator watches prey. So you drank it instead, I breathed. I tried to knock all the cups over, make it look like an accident, but I only got to one before. He gestured weakly at himself. Before this, fresh tears were running down his face now. I'm so sorry, Elizabeth. I should have gone to the police sooner, should have protected you better. I just kept thinking I was wrong, that I was crazy, that surely Sarah wouldn't actually. I know, I said, squeezing his hand. I know exactly what you mean. I've been telling myself the same lies for 30 years. We sat in silence for a long moment. Then Michael said, "You need to go to the police, today, right now. She knows I'm waking up. She knows I might talk. Elizabeth, you're in danger." I know. Then why are you still here? Why haven't you? Because she's still my daughter, I said, and my voice broke on the words. Because 30 years ago, I promised a terrified little girl that I would never give up on her, that I would love her no matter what. And I've never broken a promise in my life, even if keeping that promise kills you. Even then, Michael looked at me with such sadness, such understanding. You can't save her, Elizabeth. Whatever made her this way, trauma, brain chemistry, some fundamental brokenness, you can't fix it with love. Some people are just broken in ways that can't be fixed. I know, I whispered. God help me. I finally know. Sarah came back an hour later. I heard her footsteps in the hallway before she appeared in the doorway. And I watched Michael's entire body tense, watched fear flash across his face before he could hide it. "Mom," Sarah said, surprise coloring her voice. "I didn't expect you to be here. I wanted to check on Michael, make sure he was comfortable." "That's sweet." She moved into the room, but I noticed she kept her distance from the bed, kept her eyes on Michael, watching him like you'd watch a dangerous animal. "How are you feeling, honey?" "Tired," Michael said carefully. "The doctors say I'm improving." "That's wonderful news." Sarah's smile was perfect, relieved, loving, genuine. If I hadn't known better, I would have believed it completely. "I've been so worried. We both have, haven't we, Mom?" "Yes," I said, and was proud of how steady my voice came out. "We've both been very worried about what happened to Michael." Something flickered in Sarah's eyes. A warning, a threat. "Well, the important thing is that he's recovering," she said brightly. "And once the police finish their investigation, we can put this whole nightmare behind us. Right, Michael?" Michael didn't answer, just looked at her with an expression I couldn't quite read. Sarah's smile stayed frozen in place, but her eyes went cold. "You should go home, Mom," she said, still smiling. "Get some rest. You look exhausted." It wasn't a suggestion. It was an order, and underneath it was a very clear message. Leave, now. Before you become a problem I can't ignore. I left, but not before I squeezed Michael's hand one more time and saw the fear in his eyes. Fear not for himself, but for me. That night, I barely slept again. Every sound was Sarah at my door. Every shadow was the moment she'd decided I knew too much. I kept the evidence folder under my pillow and Carol's phone number on speed dial, ready to call for help if I heard anything suspicious. But the attack didn't come. Not that night. Not the next day. Instead, the police came to me. Detective Morrison sat in my living room, where Sarah had played as a child, where we'd shared 1,000 ordinary moments, and asked me extraordinary questions. Mrs. Morrison, we need to talk about your daughter. What about her? We've been investigating the poisoning, multiple forensic tests, interviews, financial records. He paused. And we've found some concerning patterns. What kind of patterns? Your daughter has been the last person seen with 4 people who died under suspicious circumstances over the past 8 years. Did you know that? The room tilted. 4 people. 4 deaths I'd never connected because I'd been so busy making excuses, so desperate to believe Sarah was normal, was good, was the child I'd raised her to be. Who? I whispered. He pulled out a file, read names I recognized. Michael's business partner, dead in a car crash. Sarah's former boss, who died of sudden heart failure at 43. My brother-in-law, who'd gotten violently ill after a family dinner and never recovered. A neighbor's teenage son, who'd overdosed at a party Sarah had hosted. And that's not including the incidents where people survived. Detective Morrison continued, your son-in-law isn't the first person poisoned in connection with your daughter, Mrs. Morrison. He's just the first one where we caught it fast enough to save him. What are you saying? I'm saying your daughter is a serial killer, and I'm saying she's been getting away with it because people like you. He stopped himself, softened his tone. Because the people who love her keep making excuses, keep explaining things away, keep giving her the benefit of the doubt. The words hit me like physical blows. Serial killer, not disturbed, not troubled. A serial killer who'd used my love as camouflage while she murdered her way through life. We've already obtained a warrant to search her home, Detective Morrison said gently. But Mrs. Morrison, I need to ask you something. Do you know anything that could help us? Anything she might have said or done that seemed suspicious? I thought about the folder under my pillow, the evidence I'd collected, the smoking gun that could end this right now. And I thought about the little girl who'd held my hand in that social worker's office 30 years ago. The child who'd whispered, will you really keep me forever? The daughter who'd called me mom for the first time with such hope in her voice. Yes, I heard myself say, I know something. I gave them everything, the jar, the syringe, the folder, every piece of evidence I'd found in Sarah's house. I told them about the confrontation, about her casual admission that I was a problem, about the years of explained-away suspicions. Detective Morrison's face went from professional interest to absolute horror as I laid it all out. Mrs. Morrison, why didn't you bring this to us immediately? Your daughter tried to murder you. She's dangerous. She could have— I know, I said quietly. Believe me, I know, but she's still my daughter. And I needed to be sure. I needed to give her one last chance to stop herself. And did she? I thought about Sarah's cold smile, her casual threats, the way she'd looked at Michael in that hospital room, already planning how to silence him. No, I whispered. No, she didn't. They arrested her that evening. I wasn't there, couldn't bear to watch them put handcuffs on my child. But Detective Morrison called me afterward to tell me how it went. She didn't resist, didn't show any emotion at all until we mentioned you'd provided the evidence. Then she smiled and said, my mother always was too smart for her own good. A chill ran down my spine. Where is she now? County jail, no bail. She's considered a flight risk and a danger to the community. Mrs. Morrison, you should know that we've opened investigations into 17 suspicious deaths connected to your daughter over the past 15 years. 17 people who died with Sarah nearby and who had some financial connection to her or to people she knew. We may be able to prove 7 or 8 of them. 17 people. 17 lives ended because my daughter was a predator in human skin. I need to see her, I said. That's not a good idea. I need to see her, I repeated. Please. One last time. They let me visit her 3 days later. She was being held in isolation. Too dangerous to mix with general population, they said. Too likely to manipulate or hurt other inmates. She looked the same. That was the horror of it. She looked exactly like my Sarah, sitting on that metal bench in her orange jumpsuit, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, her face calm and composed. "Hello, Mom," she said when they brought me into the visiting area. "I knew you'd come." We spoke through thick glass, phones pressed to our ears. There was something obscene about it. This technology meant to connect people being used to keep me safe from my own child. Why? The word came out like a sob. Why did you do it? Why did you kill all those people? Why did you try to kill me? Sarah tilted her head, studying me like I was an interesting puzzle. Do you really want to know? Or do you want me to say what you need to hear? That I'm sorry? That I'm broken? That my childhood trauma made me this way? The truth. For once in your life, just tell me the truth. She smiled, really smiled, with something like fondness in her eyes. Okay, Mom. The truth is, I don't know why. I've never known why. Even when I was little, before you adopted me, before all the trauma you're going to want to blame this on, I was different, wrong. I'd watch other kids cry and wonder what that felt like. I'd see people laughing together and try to figure out what they were experiencing that I couldn't. You loved me, I protested weakly. I know you did. You had to have. I learned to mimic it, she interrupted gently, and I got very, very good at the performance. But feel it? No, Mom. I've never loved anyone. Not you, not Michael, not anyone. You're all just things to me. Useful things sometimes. Obstacles other times. But never people. Never real. The words should have destroyed me. Maybe they did. But underneath the pain was a strange kind of relief. The relief of finally hearing the truth after 30 years of lies. The killing started because I was curious, Sarah continued conversationally. I wanted to see what would happen if someone died, if I'd feel something, but I never did. And then I realized how easy it was, how people would comfort me afterward, would feel sorry for me, how I could use their deaths to get things I wanted: money, attention, alibi, whatever. Michael knew, I said. He tried to save me. Michael was a mistake, she admitted. I chose him because he was devoted and rich and wouldn't ask too many questions. But he turned out to be smarter than I expected. Started noticing things, asking about inconsistencies. I should have dealt with him first, but you were taking so long to die naturally that I got impatient. I'm your mother. You're a woman who adopted me, Sarah corrected. A kind woman, a good woman, who saw a wounded child and wanted to help. But you were never my mother, Mom. I don't have a mother. I don't think I'm capable of having one. Tears were streaming down my face now, but Sarah's eyes stayed dry, stayed empty, stayed exactly like what she'd always been, a perfect imitation of human without any of the substance. I tried so hard, I whispered. I loved you so much. I gave you everything. I know, she said, and for just a moment, something like regret flickered across her face. And if I were capable of gratitude, I'd be grateful. You gave me 30 years of cover, Mom. 30 years of someone always ready to explain away the suspicious deaths, to make excuses, to give me the benefit of the doubt. You were the perfect alibi. The words broke something in me that had been holding on by threads. All those years, all that love, all that devotion and sacrifice and sleepless nights, and I'd been nothing but a tool, a shield she'd used to hide her murders. I need to go, I said, standing up on shaking legs. Mom? Sarah's voice stopped me. When I looked back, she was smiling. That same innocent smile she'd given me as a child. Thank you for trying. Really, you're a good person. It's not your fault I'm not. I hung up the phone and walked out. And I never looked back. The trial took 8 months. They convicted her on 3 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of attempted murder, and multiple counts of fraud and poisoning. The prosecution wanted the death penalty. Her defense team argued childhood trauma, mental illness, anything that might explain away what she'd done. But in the end, the evidence was overwhelming. The journal entries, the financial records, Michael's testimony, the forensic evidence from 4 crime scenes, the toxicology reports that matched poison from Sarah's kitchen to 3 victims, life in prison without possibility of parole, 4 consecutive life sentences to be exact. I didn't attend the trial, couldn't bear to watch them dissect my daughter's crimes, to hear the details of the deaths she'd caused, to see the families of her victims crying for justice. But Michael did. Sweet Michael, who'd nearly died trying to save me, who'd spent 8 months recovering from organ damage, who had every right to hate me.